Amma, a 60-year-old librarian, lived a life most people called quiet. Every morning she woke early, brewed her tea, and walked to the small library at the center of town. The building was old, with wooden shelves that carried the smell of paper and dust, but Amma cared for it like one cares for a garden. She knew each book's place, each torn page, each child who had once borrowed a story and returned with shining eyes. To the townspeople, Amma was respected. She was the woman who kept the library alive, the one who spoke gently and offered advice when asked. But beyond that respect there was little else. To them, she was only the librarian, the old woman who lived alone, caused no trouble, and walked home every evening with her shawl around her shoulders. But Amma's nights told a different story. When she returned to her small home after closing the library, she sat by her lamp with a notebook. She wrote down her thoughts, her secret dreams, and sometimes even little poems. They were not for anyone else's eyes, only hers. It was her way of keeping her soul alive. She had once hoped for love, but life had passed by quickly, and soon she was 60, with gray hair tied neatly and only her books for company. She told herself it was enough. Then came that morning. Amma opened her door as she always did, prepared to sweep the front step and greet the rising sun. But her eyes caught something unusual, a folded letter on the mat. She bent slowly, picked it up, and looked at the neat handwriting on the outside. There was no name, only her address. Her heart gave a small, sharp beat. Who would write to her? She had no enemies, no debts, and no family nearby. Curious and slightly nervous, she carried the letter inside and opened it with careful fingers. The words inside made her sit down. Your presence brings calm to this town. Your wisdom shines through your quiet ways. You may not know it, but you are noticed and you are admired. You are more than the librarian. You are a woman worth remembering. It was inside. Amma's heart fluttered in a way she had not felt for decades. Someone saw her. Someone looked beyond the gray hair, beyond the routine, beyond the silence. They saw her as a woman, not just the keeper of books. Her cheeks grew warm, and for a moment she laughed at herself. Amma, you are 60 years old, she whispered. Why is your heart beating like a young girl's? But she could not help it. The letter lit something inside her. All day at the library her mind returned to it. Each time she shelved a book, each time she spoke to a visitor, she thought of those words. Admired. Worth remembering. That night, she read the letter again and placed it carefully inside her notebook. She traced the neat handwriting with her finger, wondering who could have written it. Was it someone from town? A stranger? An old friend? The next morning she half expected to find another letter. There was none. The days went on as usual, but Amma was no longer the same. She noticed things she had once ignored, the smile of the baker as he sold her bread, the kind eyes of the farmer who brought vegetables to market, the polite greetings of townsfolk. Could it be one of them? One evening as she sat in the library, a young girl named Abina asked her, Auntie Amma, why are you smiling so much these days? Amma chuckled. Am I smiling more? Yes, Abina said, giggling. You used to look serious, but now your eyes shine. Did something good happen? Amma did not answer directly. She only said, Sometimes, child, even a small kindness can make the heart lighter. Weeks passed. One morning another letter appeared. Again, folded neatly, placed at her door. Amma's fingers trembled as she picked it up. This time the words were even warmer. Do not think your age makes you invisible. True beauty does not fade. It grows deeper with time like the roots of a strong tree. You are that tree, Amma, and many rest in your shade without knowing how much you give. But I see it. I see you. Tears filled her eyes. Whoever wrote these words knew her heart. They saw the quiet strength she carried, the patience that kept her moving when loneliness whispered too loudly. She pressed the letter to her chest and whispered, Who are you? Her nights became filled with guesses. Could it be Kweku, the retired teacher who visited the library often? Or Kojo, the shopkeeper who always greeted her kindly? Or was it someone she had not thought of at all? But beyond curiosity, Amma felt something stronger. She felt alive again. Each day was no longer just routine. Each morning, she woke with a small excitement, wondering if a new letter would be waiting. Each evening, she sat with her notebook, not only writing her secret thoughts but also replying in her mind to her unknown admirer. At 60 she felt something she thought had long passed, hope. One Saturday the town held a small gathering in the square. People laughed, sold goods, and played music. Amma joined quietly as she always did, standing at the edge. But as she listened to the drums, she felt a new boldness inside her. Someone out there had called her beautiful, wise, and worth remembering. Why should she stand in the shadows? She walked into the crowd, greeted people with warmth, and even laughed at the jokes of the younger men. Some were surprised to see her so lively, but many smiled, for they had always respected her. When she returned home that night, she found no letter, but she no longer felt sad. The letters had already changed her. She no longer saw herself as only the old librarian. She saw herself as a woman who could still be noticed, admired, even loved. Before going to bed, she sat with her notebook and wrote, "Whoever you are, thank you. You reminded me that my story is not over. You reminded me that even in quiet lives, beauty still shines." She placed the letter from the admirer beside her own words, closed the notebook and smiled. For Amma, the mystery was no longer just about finding out who. It was about finding out herself again. More letters followed, arriving like quiet surprises at Amma's doorstep. Sometimes she found them early in the morning when she opened her door. Other times, they appeared in the evening after she returned from the library. Each one was folded neatly, written in the same careful handwriting, and always unsigned. The words inside were warm and thoughtful. "You light up the library with your care," one letter said. "I see the way you guide children to books, how you never grow tired of answering their endless questions. Your patience is a gift to this town." Another read, "Your smile is gentle but strong. It gives comfort to anyone who meets you. I wonder if you know how much you are admired." Amma read each letter again and again, holding them close to her chest as if they were treasures. For years she had lived in silence, keeping her heart guarded, never expecting romance or admiration to return to her life. Yet here it was, written in simple words that stirred feelings she thought had long been buried. Her heart softened. Each day as she walked to the library, she wondered about the writer. Was he someone young or old? Someone from town or outside? Did she pass him in the market? Did they share small greetings without her knowing the depth behind them? Curiosity grew like a restless bird inside her. She began to watch more closely, noticing things she had once ignored. She saw the way the baker smiled as he handed her bread, the way the farmer nodded respectfully when she bought vegetables, the way the teacher thanked her for lending books. But one person caught her attention more than the rest. Kwame, her 27-year-old neighbor. Kwame lived with his mother in the small house next to hers. He was polite, hardworking, and respectful. Every morning, he greeted her warmly, and every evening he often carried groceries for his mother. Amma had always seen him as just the boy next door, the young man who grew up before her eyes. But now, with the letters stirring her thoughts, she began to notice something different. His greetings lingered longer than before. His eyes stayed on her for a few seconds more than necessary. Sometimes, when she looked his way, he quickly turned his head as if caught in a secret. At first, Amma brushed the thought aside. No, she told herself. He is young enough to be my grandson. He cannot be the one. But the thought refused to leave. Each time she found a new letter, her mind circled back to him. Could Kwame, the polite young man next door, be the mysterious writer? One evening, she returned home late from the library. The sky was already dark and the street was quiet. As she unlocked her door, she noticed movement. Kwame was standing outside his gate, pretending to fix something. When their eyes met, he smiled nervously. "Good evening, Auntie Amma," he said softly. "Good evening, Kwame," she replied, her voice steady though her heart raced. As she stepped inside her house, she glanced down. There on the mat lay another letter. She picked it up quickly, her fingers trembling. When she looked back, Kwame was still standing there, his eyes lowered. That night, Amma opened the letter slowly, almost afraid of what it might say. "Some people hide their admiration because they fear it will not be welcomed. But I cannot keep silent. Every day I see your strength, your grace, and your beauty that time has not dimmed. I hope you will not think it foolish if I continue to write, for writing to you has given me courage." Her heart pounded. She sat with the letter in her hands, the sound of her clock ticking in the background. Courage. Admiration. Beauty that time had not dimmed. Could this truly be Kwame? She shook her head. It seemed impossible. What would a young man like him see in a 60-year-old woman like her? And yet, his lingering glances, his quiet smiles, his nervousness when she looked at him, all of it returned to her mind like puzzle pieces slowly fitting together. For days she tried to ignore the thought, but it clung to her. She told herself she was being foolish, that her imagination was running wild because of the letters. Still, every time she saw Kwame sweeping his yard or walking past her house, she felt her cheeks grow warm. At the library, even the children began to notice her change. "Auntie Amma," Abina said one afternoon, "you are glowing these days. Did something good happen?" Amma laughed softly. "Perhaps life still holds surprises, child. even when we think it is too late. In truth, Amma was both excited and afraid. The letters filled her with joy, but the possibility of Kwame being the writer frightened her. What would people say? A woman of 60 and a man of 27. Such things were whispered about, judged harshly. Could she carry that weight? One evening, she found herself standing at her window, watching Kwame as he watered the plants in his yard. The moonlight touched his face and for a moment he looked up. Their eyes met. Neither spoke, but the silence was full of questions. That night, as she read through all the letters again, Amma realized something. Whether it was Kwame or another man, the letters had already changed her life. They had reminded her of her worth, her beauty, and her ability to be loved. For years she had lived only as the librarian, but now she felt like a woman again, alive, noticed, admired. She folded the letters carefully, tied them with a ribbon, and placed them inside her notebook. Her hands lingered on the ribbon as she whispered to herself, "Whoever you are, you have awakened a part of me I thought was gone. And for that I am grateful." Amma did not know how the story would unfold, but she knew one thing with certainty. Her heart was no longer silent. The letters slowly began to change Amma's days. For years, her life had been a quiet routine. Wake up, sweep the porch, eat a light breakfast, walk to the library, help the visitors, return home, read until sleep. It was peaceful but also lonely. Now, every morning she woke with a small spark of excitement. Would a letter be waiting at her door? Every evening as she returned from the library, her heart beat faster when she saw her mat. Sometimes there was nothing and she would sigh gently. But often there was a folded paper waiting for her, holding words that warmed her heart. She found herself smiling more often. Children at the library noticed her lighter mood. "Auntie Amma, you look happy today," a little boy said one afternoon as she helped him find a storybook. Amma chuckled softly, brushing off his words. But inside she knew it was true. She was happy. The letters gave her a reason to feel alive again. One day she came home and saw not just a letter on the mat but something extra. The paper was slightly thicker. Curious, she picked it up, went inside and sat down. Her fingers trembled as she unfolded it. Along with the usual words of admiration, there was a drawing. Amma's breath caught in her throat. It was a sketch of her, sitting among the shelves of books in the library. Her glasses perched gently on her nose, her head bent slightly as if she were reading. The details were delicate, filled with patience. Whoever had drawn it had taken time to capture her likeness with care. Her heart raced. She had never thought of herself as beautiful, especially at her age. But in this drawing she looked gentle, graceful, and important. She looked like a woman who mattered. She held the sketch close, staring at it for a long time. Someone had seen her this way. Someone had looked at her not just as an old librarian but as a person worth admiring deeply. For the first time in many years, Amma's heart stirred with hope and curiosity. She wondered who the admirer was. Who had taken the time to notice the small details about her. Who had studied her so carefully to draw her face, her glasses, her hands turning pages. Her thoughts drifted again to Kwame, her young neighbor. She remembered how his eyes sometimes followed her when she walked by, how his greetings always carried warmth. Could it be him? "No, Amma," she whispered to herself, shaking her head. "Do not be foolish." But the image of Kwame's face, his nervous smiles, and his lingering glances would not leave her mind. She looked at the sketch again. The hand that drew it was steady but soft. It was the hand of someone young, she thought, someone who still had energy and dreams. It was not the work of an older man. Her heart thudded painfully at the thought. Could Kwame truly see her this way? Could a young man see beauty in a 60-year-old woman? For the next few days she carried the sketch with her, folded safely in her bag. During her lunch breaks at the library she would open it secretly just to look at it again. Each time she felt the same warmth, the same confusion, the same question rising in her heart. Who are you? That evening, as she watered her small garden, she noticed Kwame across the fence. He was fixing something in his yard, his sleeves rolled up, sweat shining on his arms. When he saw her, he smiled, but his eyes looked away quickly as if he was hiding something. "Good evening, Auntie Amma," he said. "Good evening, Kwame," she replied softly. Her heart fluttered. She wanted to ask him. She wanted to hold up the sketch and say, "Was it you?" But fear held her tongue. Instead, she watched him quietly, her mind circling the same thought again and again. That night, she found another letter waiting for her. This one was shorter, but its words carried deep meaning. "It is not easy to reveal feelings that may seem unusual to others. But my heart cannot stop admiring you. Every time I see you among the books, I am reminded that beauty is not in age but in the spirit that shines through. I hope one day you will understand my silence. Amma read the words again and again. Her hands shook. Unusual feelings. Silence. Spirit shining through. The words felt heavy with hidden truth. She placed the letter beside the sketch and closed her eyes. For the first time in years she let her imagination wander. She imagined herself walking with the writer, laughing softly, sharing meals, listening to music under the stars. She imagined being loved again not as the librarian, but as Amma, the woman, the human heart that longed to be seen. But with hope came fear. What if people found out? What if they judged her? What if the writer was truly Kwame, and the town whispered about their ages, their difference? Could she face such gossip? She sighed deeply. Her heart was full of joy but also heavy with doubt. The next day at the library, Amma caught herself glancing at Kwame's mother, who came often to borrow books. She wondered if the woman knew anything. But nothing in her face showed it. Everything was normal. Later, when Amma returned home, she stood at her window again, watching Kwame as he sat outside, sketching in a notebook. Her breath caught. A notebook. A pencil in his hand. His head bent in focus. Her fingers clutched the ribbon that tied her letters together. Something inside her whispered, "It is him. It must be him." She quickly stepped back from the window, her heart racing. A storm of emotions swirled inside her. Hope, fear, excitement, disbelief. That night she could not sleep. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling, the sketch resting on her bedside table. Every time she closed her eyes she saw Kwame's face, his hands moving over the paper, his eyes filled with quiet admiration. Her life had been silent for so long, but now the silence was broken. The letters had opened a door she never thought would exist for her again. She whispered into the dark, "How long can I keep this mystery hidden? How long can I pretend not to know?" The night gave no answer, only the steady sound of her heart, beating with a new rhythm, one of longing, fear, and fragile hope. One evening, Amma returned home from the library later than usual. The streets were already quiet, the sky painted in soft shades of orange fading into blue. She carried her bag close to her side, her steps slow but steady. The cool air brushed against her cheeks as she walked toward her small house. As she reached her gate, she noticed something unusual. A figure bent near her door as if placing something carefully on the mat. She stopped, her breath caught in her throat. The man straightened and in the dim light she saw his face. Kwame. Their eyes locked. For a long moment, silence filled the air. Neither spoke. The world seemed to pause, leaving only the two of them standing there with nothing between them but the truth. In his hand was a folded piece of paper. Another letter. Kwame froze, his body stiff, his eyes wide as if he had been caught in a secret he could no longer hide. His lips parted and for a moment, Amma thought he might run away. But instead he took a deep breath, lowered his head slightly and spoke. "Auntie Amma," he said, his voice trembling but steady enough to carry across the quiet night. I cannot hide it anymore. It is me. I am the one who has been writing to you." Amma's heart raced so hard she could hear it in her ears. Her knees felt weak and she held onto the gate for balance. She wanted to speak but the words would not come. Kwame stepped closer, his eyes soft but full of determination. "I know you may not understand. I know this must feel strange. But everything I wrote, every word, it is true. I admire you. I admire your strength, your dignity, the way you carry yourself with such quiet grace. You are more than the librarian people see. You are light even when you do not notice it yourself." Amma stood still, her mind spinning. Kwame looked at her, his voice growing more certain. "Age does not matter to me. It never has. What I see is the person you are, the patience in your eyes, the kindness in your heart, the way you make others feel seen. That is what I love." The word hung in the air. Love. Amma's breath caught. Her fingers trembled against the gate. Shock and disbelief battled with something else, something warm that rose from deep inside her chest. "Kwame," she whispered, her voice barely audible. He held out the letter, his hand shaking. "I wanted to leave this without being seen. But perhaps it is better this way. You deserve the truth even if it makes me look foolish." Amma slowly reached out and took the letter from his hand. Their fingers brushed, and the small touch sent a rush of heat through her. She quickly pulled the letter close to her chest, as if guarding it, as if guarding her own heart. She looked into his eyes. They were not playful or careless, not the eyes of a boy teasing himself with a passing fancy. They were steady, full of honesty, and filled with something deeper than she expected. Her lips parted, but no words came. Kwame waited. The silence stretched, heavy yet tender. Finally, Amma said softly, Why me, Kwame? You are young. You could love someone your own age, someone with many years ahead of her. Why me? Kwame smiled faintly, but his eyes shone. Because when I look at you, I do not see age. I see someone who has lived with wisdom. I see someone who makes the world gentler by simply being in it. I see beauty that does not fade. That is why. Amma's eyes burned with sudden tears. She turned her face slightly, embarrassed by her own emotions. No one had spoken to her like this in decades. No one had looked at her and seen more than the gray in her hair or the lines on her face. I never thought, she began, her voice trembling, that anyone would see me this way again. Kwame stepped closer, lowering his voice so softly it almost blended with the night air. I see you, Amma. Not the librarian. Not the woman the town calls old. I see you. Her chest tightened. She wanted to protest, to remind him of their age difference, of the gossip that would follow, of how impossible it seemed. But another part of her, a hidden part long asleep, stirred with warmth. For the first time in many years she felt truly alive. They stood there for what felt like forever, the night wrapping around them like a secret. The crickets chirped in the grass, the cool breeze whispered through the leaves, and still neither of them moved. Finally, Amma found the courage to speak. Kwame, I do not know what to say. My heart is confused. I am shocked, but also, she stopped, pressing the letter closer to her chest. But also touched. Kwame's eyes softened, relief flickering across his face. That is enough for me. I do not ask for an answer tonight. I only ask that you know the truth, that you are loved, admired, and respected more than you realize. Amma closed her eyes for a moment, her heart racing. She felt the weight of years pressing against her, but also the lightness of a new beginning pressing forward. When she opened her eyes again, Kwame was still there, standing steady, waiting patiently. She gave him a small, trembling smile. You are brave, Kwame. Very brave. He shook his head gently. It is not bravery. It is simply the truth. And the truth cannot stay hidden forever. Amma lowered her gaze to the letter in her hands. She knew her life had changed in that single evening. Whatever happened next, nothing could erase the moment she discovered who had been writing to her, who had seen her in ways no one else had. As she stepped inside her house, her heart was still pounding. She closed the door slowly, leaned against it, and let out a shaky breath. She opened the letter with trembling fingers and read the words once more. This time, every sentence carried a face, a voice, a truth. And the warmth inside her chest grew, no longer something she could deny. Amma took time to let the truth settle inside her heart. The night Kwame admitted that he was the one behind the letters had changed everything. 4 days afterward, she walked through life in a haze of thoughts and emotions. At the library, she went about her usual duties, helping children find books, guiding students to reference shelves, smiling politely at visitors, but her mind was never fully on the work. In the quiet moments, she found herself replaying his words over and over again. I admire you. Age does not matter to me. I see the person you are. Those words followed her like a shadow, both comforting and frightening. At night, as she sat by the lamp with the letters spread across her table, she felt her heart softening. She thought of the long years she had lived in silence, with no hand to hold, no voice to whisper kindness. She had convinced herself that love was for the young, that romance belonged only to those who still had their youth. She had accepted loneliness as her companion. But now, Kwame's words had cracked that silence open. She told herself she needed time, and Kwame seemed to understand. He did not rush her. He still greeted her with warmth, but he did not press for answers. His patience gave her space to breathe. Slowly, she began to notice how his presence made her feel lighter. When he carried groceries for his mother, she watched the gentle way he moved. When he smiled at her across the fence, she felt her chest tighten, not with fear but with something that resembled joy. One afternoon, as Amma walked home from the market with a basket in her hand, she saw Kwame sitting outside sketching. She stopped for a moment, hidden partly by the trees, and watched him. His brow was furrowed in focus, his hand steady as it moved across the page. When he looked up and noticed her, he smiled, a smile that reached his eyes. She found herself smiling back without thinking. For the first time in many years, her smile felt natural, not forced for the sake of others. That evening, Amma sat on her bed and whispered to herself, "Love does not belong only to the young. It belongs to anyone willing to open their heart." The thought startled her, but it also calmed her. She realized that she did not have to run from the truth. She did not have to lock away her feelings out of fear of what people might say. Still, the whispers came. Neighbors noticed the way Kwame lingered near Amma's house. They noticed the way she seemed brighter, the way her steps seemed lighter. Tongues began to move, quietly at first, then louder. "Have you heard?" one woman murmured in the market. "Amma, the librarian, and that young man Kwame. They say he looks at her as if she is his wife." Another replied, "But she is old enough to be his mother. It is not right. What can he possibly see in her?" Amma heard some of these whispers herself. She felt their sting sharp and cruel. At night, she lay awake, the words echoing in her mind. For a moment, fear threatened to push her back into silence. But then she remembered the letters. She remembered the sketch of her in the library, drawn with such care. She remembered Kwame's trembling voice the night he told her, "I see you." And most of all, she remembered how he made her feel, alive again, seen again, loved again. So she made a choice. One evening, she invited Kwame to walk with her. The town was quiet, the sun low in the sky. As they walked side by side, she felt nervous, but she also felt free. People looked, some with raised brows, some with curious eyes, but she kept her head high. Kwame glanced at her, concern flickering across his face. "Are you sure, Amma? The whispers may never stop." Amma smiled softly. "Let them whisper. Their words cannot erase what I feel in my heart. You gave me back laughter, Kwame. You gave me back hope and companionship. I will not trade that for their gossip." Kwame's eyes shone with relief and pride. He reached for her hand, and though Amma hesitated for a moment, she let his fingers wrap around hers. That simple touch felt like a promise. Together they walked through the streets, no longer hiding, no longer pretending. For Amma, it was the beginning of a new chapter in her life, one not filled with loneliness but with love and respect. Days turned into weeks and weeks into months. Life did not become easier, but it became fuller. Amma found herself laughing more often. She laughed when Kwame burned the stew he tried to cook. She laughed when he teased her gently about misplacing her glasses. She laughed when he told her silly stories about his childhood. The sound of her laughter, once rare and fragile, now filled her home like music. She also found herself hoping again. She began to plan small things. Picnics under the big tree near the river, walks to the old market, evenings spent reading aloud together. These simple moments became treasures, building blocks of a love that was quiet yet steady. The town continued to talk, but with time even the sharpest voices grew tired. Some people softened, saying, "Perhaps there is something beautiful in their story after all." Others shook their heads, but Amma no longer allowed their words to break her. For she had chosen her truth. The mysterious letters that had once arrived at her door were no longer needed. Their purpose had been fulfilled. They had opened her heart, guided her toward courage, and shown her that love could bloom even after 60. One evening, as the sun set behind the hills, Amma sat on her porch with Kwame beside her. She looked at him, his face calm, his eyes filled with quiet devotion. She thought of the first letter, the sketch, the confession at her door. She thought of the journey they had taken together. With a smile, she whispered, "Thank you for writing those letters, Kwame. They gave me life again." He reached for her hand and squeezed it gently. "No, Amma. You gave yourself life. I only reminded you of what was always inside you." Her heart swelled with gratitude. She leaned back, feeling the warmth of the evening breeze, and for the first time in many years she felt complete. Together, Amma and Kwame built a story that many doubted, but one that was theirs alone. A story that proved love did not care about numbers, whispers, or years. A story that proved love could bloom at any age.